Shalom everybody, it's Kalila Kelly, your Irish Jew. Hey New York, wow. Oof, New York, you are lit. What happened there? Oof. I'm going to read you an article from the Australian Financial Review. New York, panicked Wall Street financiers are racing to rally behind an anyone but Nandani candidate for New York City mayor after 33-year-old Democratic Socialist, Communist, Zohran Mamdani, Islamist, unexpectedly clinched the Democratic nomination. Well done. Within hours of the primary result this week, hedge fund investors, private equity titans, corporate lawyers and investment bankers called and texted each other to find the best way to back a centrist challenger ahead of the November vote, according to people involved in the discussions. There he is, Zoran. He's kind of handsome. Reminds me a little bit of Peter Malinauskas, the South Australian Premier. Tall, dark and handsome. Yeah, the business community is reeling, needless to say. And yeah, a lot of that community is Jewish. New York is the Jewish city in the United States. But apparently, most Jews, apparently 1.4 million of them, didn't vote. Or don't vote in general. So, oops, that was a bit of a bad one. This is why you really need to get out and vote in democratic countries, right? You just got to do it. You just got to do it. President Donald Trump branded Mamdani a 100% communist lunatic after his surprise victory, saying he was a radical lefty who was on his way to becoming mayor. Oh, there he is again. I mean, he is good looking, and looks do count in politics. I mean, he's nice to look at. We'll see how long people like him before New York turns into even more of a shit show than it apparently is, excuse my French. This is a man who wants to raise corporate tax and wants to add a 2% income tax surcharge for individuals earning more than $1 million. He wants free bus services and universal childcare. And he wants New York to become a place where people can live. And it's kind of a real problem. I mean, where can people live? Real estate will continue to increase. How do people who are struggling, whose wages have not increased year after year, how do you keep up with that? Everyone has to move to the outer suburbs or to the country or to God knows where to be able to buy a tiny little house. Not even buy, just to rent. It's okay if you've got money, and if you don't have money, you're kind of screwed. So everyone's freaking out, and it's not the fact that he's a Muslim that is terrifying. It's the fact that he openly supports this nihilistic, vengeful, ideological, and I would say sociopathic conglomerate of professional protesters that have been infecting the universities with Qatari money, who run around complaining about everything, who run around blaming Israel for everything, and who are really fanatical. It'll be interesting to see what it would be like under one of these fanatics, essentially. I also saw a clip of Mamdani saying that, most criminals should not be put into jail and punished, but instead they should be, taught to reflect on the way that they did something bad and to, have some empathy and think about it first. I mean, this is so stupid, right? This is so stupid. Anyone who has ever taught children or teenagers or been anywhere near people who have committed crimes, it's done with desperation. Sometimes it's done out of boredom, and it's always done with a lack of conscience, a lack of the ability to have empathy for the victims or the people who will suffer the consequences of those actions. So asking someone who has, for example, beaten the crap out of a shop assistant and then raped her, asking him to pause and reflect and to feel sorry and bad is a Protestant idea that the English brought into their prison system after Catholicism was defeated. And they brought in this Protestant idea that you do something bad and then you sit in jail for a long time and just reflect on your evil and your badness. People don't do that though. Human nature and the penitentiary system, the history of prisons have proven that the majority of men in there and women in there do not reflect on what they did and go, oh yeah, I was a bit of a bad boy, I shouldn't do that next time, but not rape next time. Maybe just a light beating and then I'll stop and reflect. They don't do that. People don't do that. In fact, you go to prison, you become even more hardened into your rhetoric. You become even more desensitized, even less empathetic to your victims. And then when you're released, as Sadiq Khan is doing, for example, in London and all across the UK with Keir Starmer letting out the worst people, rapists, murderers, torturers, letting them off early, terrorists, the very first thing they then go and do is the same crime that they got put into jail in the first place. I mean, this is the sort of rhetoric from people who have never suffered poverty, who have never suffered what it really feels like to be attacked or victimized in any way. The language and the ideology and the privilege does not match reality. And they're saying that most people who voted for Cuomo were working class, Black Americans, or just poor people basically. And everyone who voted for Mamdani were the whitest areas of New York, like the most privileged, and some Asians too, the most privileged people in New York, the most privileged, university degrees, mummy and daddy trust funds, the elitist, affluent ideologies. I don't know what it is about elitists and people who have money that when they go into politics so often, they create this romantic ideal of socialism, this romantic ideal of distribution, of a different way of doing life. And it's because they've never suffered poverty or difficulty or what it's really like to be the underdog. They wouldn't shit on the system if they really knew that. It's like the socialists and the communists in the US in the 1920s who went over to Russia because Russia was like the new amazing communist paradise. And when they got there, very, very often, they would be sent to gulags or killed or punished in some way and were like, oh my God, wow, the US is really terrible. The USSR is really terrible. And the USA and capitalism and fresh food and sunshine isn't actually quite so bad as we thought it was. It's not perfect. Capitalism is by no means perfect, but it is so much better than communism. I was thinking about why is that? And I think it's because humans are inherently selfish. We have the capacity for greed and for ambition, and capitalism allows us to reach for that and to play into that part of our human nature. Competition, ambition, wanting more, doing more to get more. This is very human. And the opposite is that if you have people who are ambitious and greedy and you put them in a capitalist system, all that means is that they get to be that way if they get into the leadership roles, like Stalin and all them. In the Communist Party, there's the party elite who are the wealthy motherfuckers, excuse my French, and then everybody else is not given access to the same opportunities. Everybody else is forbidden from being greedy and selfish. Everybody else has to share and live and let live and not have anything of their own and not have private property. Everyone else has to act like they're equal. But I guarantee you, as is proved by history, every single time, humans create a pyramid of power. The ones at the top take all the power. And at least in capitalist societies, you have a bit of a chance to get a bit of power yourself, depending on your ingenuity, on your ability to sell products, on your ability to work hard and smart for money. But in communist systems, nobody's allowed to achieve, nobody's allowed to be greedy and to try and do things their own way. And yet there is still the injustice and the unequal distribution of power, and therefore the unequal distribution of money every single time. That's how it works. Communism has never solved that human problem of greed and power. Never. It's never worked. So good luck, New York City. At least as you're waiting in the bread lines for your food and you see posters of your beautiful, beautiful, hot Islamist mayor, at least you'll have a handsome face to look at as you wait for your bread. Mazel tov.